go. All right, so Tuesday, May 25th. Tuesday, May 25th, and it is the marketing drive. I just dropped my son off at school. Got a little jazz playing in the background. I want to see how that comes out. I was actually surprised yesterday. The audio turned out much better than I thought. Sorry, I'm just sweating like crazy because I have the windows closed to reduce the side external noise, the white noise, as it's called in the video world. Anyways, yeah, just dropped my son off. Nicole just took Cohen for his first field trip. So cute. Doing Pioneer Village. Gonna learn how the Mennonites live. And so today on the marketing drive, I was gonna talk a little bit about, well, I was gonna talk about two things, and I was kind of thinking last night and talking to my wife what the best way to fit this stuff into kind of the morning marketing drive. Should I get into too much detail, or should I kind of keep it higher level and then put up the different resources I'm talking about? And then it kind of struck me. So I think what I'm going to do, and feel free to give me feedback on what you think, is I'm trying to keep this short. I want to keep it, convenient for people to watch, but also have a bit of a takeaway, and then allow you to come back to the blog and pick up some of the more detailed stuff that I was kind of talking about there. But one of the things, so drop me a comment, let me know what you think about that. I'm also trying this background music thing, and I don't know if it's going to work really well, but whatever, we'll see. I also have my lav mic that I'm going to maybe do another version of this with. So again, we shall see. I'm actually going to go pick up a coffee at the infamous Tim Hortons. So that should help with the noise and give me a chance to just not drive for a minute. Let me just pull in here. Anyways, what I was going to talk about today is, and this is interesting because we just finished papering up an exciting new project in the fantasy sports space. So I'm a fantasy sports fan. Wouldn't call myself a guru, but I certainly do enjoy me some daily fantasy. But one of the things that we are doing is building a marketing plan and a marketing strategy for a product that's to be released probably in October. And some of the conversations that we've had have been about, when does marketing start? How should we start this? When do we start this? And I think one of the biggest takeaways, it's funny, on inbound.org, this morning I was just reading another post by Wild Audiences. I think I can actually probably look it up. It's still on my phone, most likely. By Wild Audience, where he's talking about the exact same thing. And it's funny because I was just having the conversation the other day. You build, when I read this term from, what's his name? Wild Audience. Sorry, I'm very, very self-conscious about my double chin, just because of the camera angle. Not that I have one or anything like that, and I don't have one. Bastian Ernst. So anyhow, he talks about a minimum viable audience in line with a minimum viable product. So when you're launching in the startup space, it's a pretty common thing to hear the word minimum viable product, which is kind of the smallest, most atomic thing you can develop in order to start learning about your product development cycle. So I like the term minimum viable audience. I think it makes a lot of sense. But to that point, I think it's this conversation and what this podcast is all about here, and I'm kind of taking a long time to get to it, is building your audience consistently prior to any product launch, whether it's a brand new product launch or a new product in your line, but kind of a consistent look at audience building, and that's your customer base, but your audience on all channels. It's really important to go through that persona development. I talked a bit about that yesterday. Staying on point with your marketing playbook, so developing your goals, developing personas, developing your marketing playbook, developing your campaigns that achieve those goals, and then we're really focusing on audience building as opposed to sales. because sales are the thing that come out of a relationship with an audience that sees value in what it is that you do. So in this specific case, we're going to do daily fantasy sports. Now that's a very competitive industry. This is a very interesting platform and piece of software, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, it's got a lot of competition. So what we need to do is an opportunity for people to understand why it's different, what it can do differently, who it is that we're talking to. So when you're developing an audience, and a lot of, again, I think this is one of the biggest challenges of modern marketing, is understanding who your audience is and who they aren't. So I could say anybody that plays fantasy sports, yay. Okay, but that's a big audience. Everybody from a super casual player, I would put myself somewhere in the middle of that, to my brother-in-law, who is in every fantasy league, I think, that you could probably imagine. And I would call him highly engaged, to the super elite engaged players that play daily fantasy for significant sums of money and multiple lineups. So, you go through this process. I'm about to hit up this drive-through. So you're getting the this awkward little stance here. You're getting the, this is unscripted, as you can tell. So understanding who the audience is, and then taking steps in your marketing plan and your marketing strategy to build that audience every single day through social media, through email, through engagement, through forums, conversations, groups, prior to even the product being launched. Like, it'll help you get a barometer on what the product should be, what people's feedback is, and it'll situate you. Okay, now I'm going to place my order, so hold on one moment.
Good morning, may I take your order?
Good morning. Can I get an extra large regular, please?
Certainly. 210 and we'll see you at the window.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Big coffee. So when you're building that minimum viable audience initially, like that's a brand new product, but if you have an existing product, you should not be afraid to begin building that audience and nurturing that audience on a daily basis. So really breaking down, who is my audience? And I'll talk about this one, I think maybe tomorrow, which is something I'm a big fan of, which is the See, Think, Do, Care framework for social media measurement and communication by Avanand Kaushik. It's one of my faves. It's a great framework because it doesn't forget social, and it also doesn't forget measurement. But when people say, hey, I got 1,000 likes on Facebook, or I got this many shares, my first question is, who is your audience? Like, who are the audiences that you're engaging with to get that? Are they your addressable audience? Are they a general audience? Are they a very targeted group, like a subset? Do you even know? And I think that's the biggest question. Do you know who your audience is, and are you able to break them down into specific groups so you can tailor the message? Because the question that was asked, now I'm going to pick up my coffee. This is a lot of fun. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. You too. All right, so we're back. That was easy. So this truly is the marketing drive. So again, I think one of the things that's really important is defining your audience, then taking steps to build and nurture your audience in a strategic way. That wild audience is, I'm going to probably, when I post this up, I'll pop a link into the blog post over to Bastian's blog post, because I think it's very genuine about him going from 0 to 10,000 subscribers prior to him having actually built a product. It's a very startup oriented thing. But the point being that this process of audience building, audience definition, and audience building is extremely critical. So, sitting down and asking yourself the question, who is my real audience here? How can I break them down, right, into distinct groups, even if they're not your customers yet? I mean, that may be an end goal, but it's also important to have an addressable audience of people that are interested in what you're talking about. Eventually, they may become your customers. Maybe not. Maybe they'll refer people. Maybe they will become your influencers and advocates. But without really truly understanding who your audience is and being able to write it down and segment who they are and what you want to say to them, then you can get down to addressing, to either build a minimum viable audience, or you can get down to audience management, which is, what do I want to say to these people on a given day? And what would be relevant to them? So there's some really great examples, and this, again, I'm totally stealing this from you, Bastian. I hope you consider it flattering, because I was just reading the blog post. Rand Fishkin from SEO, from Moz. I always call it SEO Moz, I just can't untrain myself. But that started out as a blog about SEO, and he turned it into a platform that we use on a regular basis. So talking about SEO, so Rand knows a lot about it, been around in it for as long as I have. But he managed to turn that addressable audience into a customer base because he was thinking about audience management. Brian Gardner from Copyblogger. Copyblogger is quite large. Again, started out as a blog, found his audience, figured out what they wanted, and then tailored a number of pieces of software and subscription services to that audience. There's a bunch more in there. Dropbox is another great example. I think that, well, they came out with the product, so I shouldn't really necessarily say that. But this is talking about building a minimum viable audience if you don't have a product. And if you do have a product, there's nothing stopping you from going back, breaking down your audiences, and really thinking about, what am I trying to say to those people, and how am I going to provide them value, and how am I going to manage that audience? What is my plan? So I guess that's it for today's marketing drive. It just popped into my head because I was having the conversation the other day with a brand new client, which we signed completely yesterday. So we'll be making the press release and the announcement, so that's pretty